I should probably unmute my microphone first. Then you could actually hear me. Maybe that would be a great idea. Just maybe. But I am super tired. I don't know if you can tell. I just finished working an hour ago. And it means that we are only gonna do one chapter. I'm sorry about that, but we will see. We will see. I'm gonna say for now. I feel like we are only gonna do one chapter, but we will see. I might just say that okay, we can continue at the end, but don't get your hopes up because I am tired. So, are we ready to continue RWBY versus Pokemon? Not versus. They are with the Pokemon, they are still against the Grim. Happy to be with me at all. Well, as you see, I'm gonna be here tomorrow and probably the whole full week next week. At least Monday, Tuesday, blah 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 blah. It's not Sunday and Saturday. Okay, the fist in the chair. Ha! That was not just a rage fist. No. So let's lower this music, which we are gonna be using is Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Express of Time. That is the BGM we are using today. If you are interested. This one is Wigglytuff's Guild Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Express of Time. Doctor's Music Extended. It's a long time though. I know. So let's just simply start. Chapter 11. I am not left-handed. Oh wow, I clicked on a good one immediately. How loud it is? It's not loud at all. But it can be loud. In seconds. Should be fine with this. Oh, we are coming with Gary. Okay, I see where we are. I still say the whole fart should have teleported back to town and waited for us instead of slowing us down. Game muttered for the 10th time. The old world can hear you, Oak. Cypress wheezed as he lumbered after the younger man and their Pokemon. Grasping the unfamiliar station, I should probably actually check. It's way too happy for that chapter. That was for the starting point. I should definitely gonna check what Cypress sounds like. I'm not left-handed, but I should be. Wish I was. Should. I'm curious. Professor Cypress. Is there anything? Literally nothing. But how he sounds like. Is it an actual character that shows up? Is he? Does he even show up in the anime? Maybe not. Then if not, I will not know his name. His sound, how he sounds like. You will just have to deal with my own. Didn't realize who they were at first, but Oak eventually did. But it's not just Oak, it's Gary Oak. Cypress wheezed as he lumbered after the young man and their Pokemon, gasping at the unfamiliar expression. Oh good, then I don't need to repeat myself. Yeah, yelled back with a complete lack of self-awareness. Tracy just kept walking, doing his best to keep his temper under control. All afternoon this trek had taken and Arcanine had given no indication that the trail was getting fresher. Not helping Tracy's mood was the fact that he partially agreed with Gary for once. While part of their slow pace was inevitable result of trying to follow the scent of trail to a pathless forest, having an elderly man in lackluster physical shape as part of the group really wasn't doing their speed any favors. On the other hand, Cypress may not have been quite so adamant about being the part of the pursuit if Gary hadn't been so crude in his complaints about that weight. With a faint bzzz and insectoid wings, Saito buzzed back to the crowd, to the group. He had taken to the scouting ahead along the flanks of the route, the better to keep an eye out for mystery monsters, and the better to escape an unending bickering if Tracy was any judge. Now though, Saito looked excited and was gesturing back the way he had come, which almost dead ahead of Arcanine's chosen route. The massive hound barked eagerly, and the pair darted off into the brush. Gary and Tracy immediately followed, Cypress huffing after them. A few dozen yards ahead was more forest, exactly like the rest, but with a scattering of battle damage on the trees and trampled on the road. Arcanine already had his nose to the ground, taking everything he could with Odor's loot. Saito stood by a tree, with a deep gouge down to the trunk, and waved his trainer over. Also, in the game it was so strange that Odor's loot used a magnifying glass. I couldn't, when I didn't actually understand English that much. That was when it was the first game, probably. First or second games. I was like, what the heck is Odor's loot and what does it even do? It just shows a magnifying glass. Sai! The mantis slowly drew the tip of his blade arm along the gently curving mark, and nodded certainly. Now I absolutely know, don't worry about that. Tracy considered for a moment, interpreting what his friend was telling him. This matches the marks. Back at the ruin? Oh, it was Tracy. Sai! Gray drew Alakazam's Pokeball as Arcanine finishes investigations, and a moment later the psychic once again passing along his teammates' findings. Arcanine says that the odd smell from the ruin is fairly strong here. Whatever caused it came from the west. It caused pests with the human spells he has been following, and they don't leave. The humans do, changing course to the southeast, along with a Zubat apparently. Tracy and Gray both stopped and shared a long look. Tracy coughed and shifted in place awkwardly as he considered the last detail. A Zubat. A small group of humans with a Zubat who headed to the southeast, which is where Golden Valley is. I'm suddenly trying to imagine a talking Pokemon like Meowth, fully integrating in human society by having a job, driving a car, and crazy as the world becoming a Pokemon trainer. Wasn't there actually a part? I might making things up in my mind, but I kinda recall something about Pokemon training other Pokemons. That was actually a thing. They couldn't talk human, but they were still kinda leading the other Pokemon. It's kind of a Pokemon trainer, but not really. I mean, just realize what Meow would have turned into if he actually got the prey that he was going for. If you know Meowth's backstory, which was in the anime. It was adapted into it. You know why he took the long and not boring life of Team Rocket. Why? Yes. What's wrong? Gary raised a hand and covered his eyes. Already absolutely certain he knew the answer to the next question. He couldn't help it but ask anyway. Aconite, can you give us any specifics about this group of humans with a Zubat? How many of them are there? And are they man or woman, stuff like that? Aconite, Scyther, Alakazam and Cypress all look puzzled by the younger human's attitude. The Hound answered faithfully, and Alakazam, concerned in his mental tone, continued to supply the translation. There are 4 distinct human sons, and all of them are female, probably adolescents. What's the problem? There was not an immediate answer. Tracy simply closed his eyes and tilted his head back. Outwardly calm, even as he radiated frustration like a furnace. Gary, on the other hand, was like a little louder. Tim's life is boring? No, it's not boring at all. And no, they don't have low IQ. I will not take that. I will take that as an insult to them. Just realize how many good plans they have made. How many good machines they made. Their plans were actually they all would have fruited if it wasn't for that damn Pikachu. It's almost always that Pikachu that ruins that plan. The only reason they are losing is because they are going after Ash and Pikachu. Nothing else. Pikachu is their kryptonite, yes. Okay, when Gary springs a leak, things have gone seriously wrong. Step out of it already and tell us what happened. Give me a second. Yeah, it's so annoying when something goes on your throat and you can't take it out. Literally. It might stop me from talking from time to time. I wonder who the kindest Team Rocket was. The kindest? Probably James. Oh no, it is actually Meow. I'm pretty sure it was Meow because he showed a lot more heart than the others. We met them. Tracy sighed, trying to retain his dignity even as he felt like kicking himself. Last night, on the way in Pokemon Center, young Ch11, her sister RWBY, wise something or and Blake Ball or something. 4 girls. Mid to late teens, with a super following RWBY. They said they would just ride in town. Cypress stared at Tracy, then glanced at Gary, who had progressed to muttering quiet obscenities under his breath. The old scientist took off his glasses, carefully wiped them with the hem of his shirt, and put them back on, as he considered the question he wanted to ask. Oh, he did them, didn't he? Yeah. I'm a failure? A hilarious failure. Well, at least got something good came of this. If you're counting the Pokemon, maybe several of the Pokemon is the kindest because they are the innocent. How about for Wolfat? I wouldn't think he is kind. I don't know. Yeah, I can kinda see that, but I am pretty sure that Meowth is still... I see Pokemon angry at humanity and even aggressive, but seems to me they are very rarely truly evil. I mean, there is always multiple sides to a coin, not two. Well, that is possibly because there are a little bit... Yeah, they are just normal animals. Did you ever see an animal which is evil in real life? I know we are talking about Pokemon who are more sentient than normal animals, but still, I don't think they... If they wanted to, they could destroy humanity easily. This is why the Grim attack on this area is gonna be so trying. This is why this mashup actually works. That the Grim are truly evil creatures. Are they evil though? No, they just want to kill and destroy. And feed on the negative emotions. It's just how they were made. It's not their fault that they are made like this. But yeah, if we see it in the human perspective, they are truly evil. So they are terrible. Let's just say they are the ones that people really didn't want to come here. I really can't think today. You can tell I'm tired. Well, screw you too, Gary yelled. Damn it, why the hell didn't one of us think of trying to ask Arcanine for details immediately? We could have just spotted back to town and talk to them straight away. Don't bother beating yourself up, Oak. Under normal circumstances, knowing the details wouldn't have happened until we reached the end of the trail, said Preston, extending the conversational olive branch. And what are the odds that you two would have randomly met the people we didn't yet know we were looking for? If Ashy Boy was around, I'd say 1-on-1, but he's not, so... Guy took a deep breath. Ashy Boy. Did he really call Ashy Boy in the show? I don't know. They took a deep breath and let it out slowly. Okay, before we go back to town though, here's a question. If they only had one Pokemon, a Zubat, that didn't join them until they got here, where is all this butter damage coming from? Tracy thought about it and snapped his fingers as he remembered something. Wait a minute, I think... He produced his sketchpad and flipped open the caricature he had doodled the previous night. Even with the intentionally off-kilter proportions, he had included a lot of detail. Right there in front of him. Yep, it was sad. He said it under his breath. Because he doesn't want to say it out loud that Ash is better than him. One of them was carrying a sword. Weiss, the girl with the white hair. She had a sword on her hip, see? I thought it was odd, but she was kind of irritable, so I didn't want to ask about it. After glaring at Tracy for the drawing's existence and manfully ignoring Cypress's snicker, Gray cast a look around the small battlefield. I don't know much about swords, he said, but I don't think a sword could do this kind of damage. The slash is sure, but the craters, the scorch marks? Cypress ran an appraising eye over the drawing. Not the slash either. That's clearly a rapier. The weapon designed for the thrust. Perhaps other three are armed as well. Saita! The mantis called for them from another tree. This one, with a section of trunk, blasted away. The racist Pokemon was carefully working the tip of one of his massive arm sides into a hole and flipped something out into the flat of the blade. Tracy said at the smashed up lump of metal. Is that a bullet? Suddenly, Arcanine snapped a warning. Hackers raised and fell standing on the land. A wordless roar from the forest answered him. The humans and the Pokemon whipped around to face the source, and all but Cypress got their first look at the creature of Grim. Damn, Pokemon need subtitles! I mean, that's why Arcanine is not Arcanine. Alakazam is here. To translate! The bear was massive, standing at least 7 feet at the shoulder, even on all fours. You know what? Yep, that would work. Its fur was so dark, it seemed to drink in the light. And the forest of yard-long bone spikes, straddling its back, rattled against each other with every lumbering step. Blades of white studded the massive frame like armor, and the blonde head was capped by a mask lined with the red traceries. Its four eyes glowed red in the shadows of the forest. It bellowed again, and lurched into a charge towards the group. Arcanine answered the challenge with a howl, and the behemoth dog barreled into the monstrous bear, flame spitting from his jaws. As the titans of fire and darkness clashed, more roars and distorted howls rose from the forest. More creatures like the first were approaching. They weren't quite as big and lacked the massive blade-like spines, but they were clearly built from the same mold. They were accompanied by leaner, faster shapes, more like wolves than bears. Just one time Ash got the Pokemon processing his Pokédex. Not only did it serve as a Pokédex, but it could talk and translate for other Pokemon. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, finally Ash has a Pokédex on his side. That has happened before. Not just with the Pokédex, but I'm pretty sure that there was a time when Meow got lost and he was following Ash to get back to Team Rocket. I remember that episode. That definitely happened. And I haven't watched the newer series at all. I don't know where I stopped it in Pokemon. It was a long time ago. But I know that you are talking about Rotom, right? That's the Pokemon. It's a Rotom Pokédex. I only know about that Pokemon is because of the tournaments. They use that a lot of times. Not the Pokédex type, but the washing machine. Cypress screeched angrily, clashing his blades, and Alakazam's eyes began to glow cerulean as he got at the power. The bears hurtled forward, burning up surprising speed. Hey, Cypress! Guy called, not taking his eyes away from his fire-type grappling with the despair. Arcanine's jaws were snapping at the thing's neck, fangs alight with shaped flame. And his trainer understood him well enough to recognize his snarls as a storm of profanity. roommate once said that there was an odd price for Meow's ability to talk. Because of it, for some reason, he couldn't fight as well. No, that's not true. That's not true. Meow can still fight, but he's just a Meow. He even shows at one point that he can still use Scratch and Iron Fang? Not Iron Fang, some other skills. So he could fight, but not with proficiency. He never had a trainer, literally. And the team cannot be considered trainers, they are just friends. Or teammates. And because of that, he cannot really fight, but he could if he needed to. It's not gonna be enough to fight off a well-trained Pokemon, that's for sure. Yeah, Meow is still very low level. I mean, he just faints on every battle that he goes into, right? Team Rocket always tries again. Yes, Oak! The scientist answered, sounding faint-hearted as he looked on. I wanted to stop being skeptic now. The battle was both brutal and surprisingly short. Cider faced down a handful of the lesser bears without much trouble. Though their hides were tough and bulged with coated muscle, they had parted under his blades with little resistance. Something that had left the veteran battler shocked. It was nothing at all like striking a Pokemon. It was more like mundane animals he had hunted with his former swarm. And now Gary finally became better and less annoying. Huh! Reminds me of one of Team RWBY. Right? Gary, that's why I told you when we saw Gary going towards them. I was like, yeah, he's either gonna be like, Yang is probably, not Yang, Weiss is probably gonna be a good friend of his, or gonna burn him down. I was wrong, it was Yang who did the burning, but Weiss didn't like him either. But they definitely have something in their minds and their personality. They are not so different after all. Akunai had picked up a few scratches and scrapes, and he was favoring his left foreleg a bit after it had been chewed on by a massive opponent. He didn't really mind though. It had finally gotten the bear to hold still long enough to catch a point-blank flamethrower to the face. Alakazam had cleared out a few of the monsters as well, but not as many as Scyther. He had kept in mind that this was intended to be a research mission, and that of the 3 Pokemon in the battle, he was best equipped for a live capture, the importance of which had been apparent when Scyther had accidentally sent an Ursine arm pinwheeling through the air. It hadn't gone well. Using Psychic probed them. Confusion did the same, unless he deliberately underpowered it, in which case, it seemed to inconvenience them. Psybeam tended to leave the monsters collapsing in a mindless heap, only to begin evaporating into nothing seconds later, just like all of the others killed in the fighting. And wasn't that an interesting bit of data? As soon as the fight ended, Cypress had tried to take samples from the remains, only for everything to fade into nothingness in front of him. Cursing, the old man had been reduced to waving specimen jars, through clouds of smoke that poured off the bodies. There had been a few scares during the fight as well. The monster didn't seem to have any preference for who they attacked, and a handful of wolf things had circled wide enough to go after humans directly. Thankfully, Scyther had seen them in time, and managed to quick attack his way back and intercept them before anyone got hurt. Gary's hands were shaking a little as the fight ended, but he was able to keep his voice reasonably calm. Okay, here's the plan. We teleport back to town now, I call Grams to tell him what's happening. Tracy looks for those girls. Cypress starts silencing those samples. Sounds good? Great, let's go! Nobody was arguing. Saita and Dr. Line were returned, and the lockers are focused on the town, and they were treated to a scene of desolation, as the cheerful small town streets looked more like the aftermath of a war zone. What the hell? Crescent rose whistled through the air, separating the other wolf from its head. It was the too damn many since they left the Golden Valley hours before. None of them were really sure what time it was, but it had to be after midnight at least. As the latest group of Grimm turned at bay and attacked the pursuers, dissolved into nothing while slumped against the tree, breathing laboured. Is there any else started to think we are no longer the predators in this chase? Blake shook her head. I'm starting to think we never were. Yang was shimmering with impotent rage, her frustration at being unable to get the grips of their prey, leaving her eyes glowing red. Come on! No time to be lazy, bicycle! The big fish is getting away! Vice glad as her breathing finally steadied. We don't even know if it's still ahead of us, Yang. If it's smart enough to send rear guard in waves, it's probably smart enough to lead us off its trail. Ruby shocked. So we find out. Vice shifted her glare to her partner. How? We ask. Ruby looked up into the branches of a nearby tree. Excuse me, can we talk for a second? Timmy stared at her blankly, before a faint voice answered her. Oh, the Sentreed! Sentreed! I don't know how the Sentreed sounds like. It's a ah! It's around something like that. I'm still just going off about the Pokemon game voices. Slowly hesitantly round-bodied Pokemon with rabbit-like ears and raccoon-like tail inserted along the trunk of the tree, onto a branch well above the girl's head. It shivered at both the remains of Grimm as they faded away, and the weapon still in the human's hands. By any chance, did you see a really big one of these things pass by? I mean, still shaped like the rest, but twice as big with lots of extra spikes and stuff? Sandrid's eyes widened, and she began nodding frantically. The poor little thing looked terrified just by the memory. Did you say which way it went? The little Pokemon pointed, and Ruby beamed at her. Thanks, it should be safe around here now, but be careful just in case, okay? She turned to her teammates. Let's go! She and Zubat hurried off in the direction Sandra had indicated. The others followed, after a moment spent sharing incredulous and bemused looks. Ruby, Vice called, how did you know? I jumped off that branch when I was going after those Nevermores earlier. I saw her then. Oh. They then continued hurrying through the dark forest. The waves of the Grimm that turned at bay were getting fewer and thinner, but made the following the rest that much harder. If it hadn't been for Blake's night vision and tracking skills, they would have lost their quarry hours earlier. If they went too long without being attacked by Grimm, Ruby would simply seek out a nearby Pokemon with Zubat's help, and if they had seen the other Grimm. More often than not, one of them had, and the team were able to maintain the pursuit. Eventually, Vice, Blake, and Yang finally accepted the oddity of asking directions from owls, rodents, and even huge bugs. A few times during that night, Team Ruby stumbled across larger and more aggressive Pokemon fighting off packs of Grimm. I still got the shivers thinking about the hive of massive bees with spikes for limbs protecting their tree from a swarm of lancers. Even after the girls hit the hornet like Grimm from behind, the Pokemon remained aggressive and took a defensive stance against the humans and faunus, and threatening drone of Beidre had filled the air. They had calmed a bit once Ruby asked about the other Grimm. Dozens of lance-like arms pointing in unison along the mountainside. The most interesting encounter, though, had been the green armored bipedal lizard thing they had found protecting the mouth of a cave from a mass Earth-side. A green armored bipedal lizard. I don't know what it can be. There is only one that might come to mind. It's Tyranitar. That's green and kinda lizard-like, but that's a dragon. As the girls attacked the horde, two had rushed the lizard and tried to pin its arms back as a third lunged for the throat. Maybe later they will say what it is. Or at least to write down more about the bipedal green armored. I forgot about that part. Then it's probably definitely a Trialtor. Content to us, the reptile herd much larger bears off. And yes, it is. It is. And grabbed deep in his throat as the third attacked. Tyranitar! I definitely cannot do that voice. And with that, an orange glow appeared in its mouth, and the freaking laser beams speared out and punched through the Ursa and a half dozen more behind it. Blake and Weiss had been frighteningly close to its path, and had to dive clear of the ravening blast. The trees collapsed in the wake of the beam's explosive finale, and the Tyranitar's chest heaved in the exertion. Even the surviving Ursa looked shocked by the display before running forward and continuing the attack. Love that scene. That was my last drop of coffee, literally. Team Robin finished them quite easily, saving the tired Pokemon from the necessity. Like the beater before it, Tyranitar had still regarded the humans before it with caution, blocking the cave mouths and not allowing them any closer. It did listen to Ruby's question about the quarry, but had shrugged in confusion. Then there had been an audible squeaking from behind her, within the cave, and a pair of smaller green armored things had squeezed past. What was about their mother? Huh! It's not a Gibble, it's a smaller Tyranitar. Not a defenseless word, though the Pokemon are spread out in terms in levels, most likely low level. But those who can fight can do so in a large variety of ways. True. I'm surprised that the Tyranitar is not wait, yeah. Okay, yeah, my bad. It is definitely just defending some gibbers. Is it what they are called, the little Tyranitars? Are they green? Give me a second. They are not green. Wait, no. I'm stupid. Gibber turns into Garchomp, not Tyranitar. Wait. It was a long time ago since I met those Pokemon. I haven't played Pokemon in a while. What is Tyranitar turning from? Oh, Larvitar! My bad. Yeah, close enough. Those are the little Larvitars. Don't think they will be accustomed to so many potential allies in the battlefield, even in wilderness. Well, there are not many live animals out in the Remnant, in their own world. So obviously not. And it's not like they can get help from other Grimm outside of the borders of their of the cities. And if I read a little bit further, I could have actually stopped myself from going around in circles and making fun of myself by calling Larvitar Gibber. One of the little ones identified itself as a Larvitar heard RWBY's question and had seen the elder as their mother hurried them into the cave, and with his pointed directions, the hunt continued. Eventually, inexorably, they closed in on their quarry. The sky was lightening before them as they left the line of the trees, and they found the border strewn filled bare vegetation. It was bordered on three sides by the forest, and the last was a cliff that looked out over the mountains. Waiting for them, perched up on a narrow spire of stone, they just shut it up, and out over the edge of the cliff was the other Grimm. It was a werewolf alpha, even larger and more heavy-muscled than most of its kind, and covered the scars of decades or more of battle. There were thin cracks running through some of its thick armor plates. Some of the long bone razors that emerged from its back were broken, and part of his mask had been shattered along the jaw. But none of the huntresses facing it were foolish enough to think such trifling wounds make it any less dangerous. If anything, a Grimm with so many visible scars was far more dangerous, just as an all-scarred huntsman would be, because they meant the bearer was a survivor. Alone, it crouched atop the stones, looking almost at peace, and it waited for its pursuers. Its arms rested atop its knees, and remained still as the girl spread out and approached more slowly. No bow leapt out from behind the boulders, no nevermore caved from the trees, no creeps burst from the dry soil. There was a long, quiet moment, almost tranquil in the pre-dawn gloom. The hunters and their Ch11 friend stared at the monster they had pursued for the whole night, and it looked back at them, alien toes concealed behind his eyes like glowing cores. We are talking about an awesome major. Wait, is it a... Oh, it's a werewolf alpha. It's at least an alpha, so it can think now. It's a survivor. What if... I know it's out of the question, but still, it's a new land. The gods are not here. What if one of the Grimm actually thought about him things like surviving? What if they actually want to live in peace? I'm pretty sure that's not an option, but still, what if? No werewolves, never moors, no creeps, but there were Minecraft creepers. There was a long, quiet moment, almost tranquil in the pre-dawn gloom. The hunters and their Ch11 friend stared them at the monster they had pursued for the whole night, and it looked back at them, alien tools concealed behind his eyes like glowing cores. Alpha Grimm, did you evolve too? That's another series. There are no Digimons here. I'm pretty sure there is a lot of fanfictions about Digimon and Pokemon mixed together. Young's patience, all afraid to the breaking point, by hours of pursuit, finally snapped, with a scream of rage. She fired Amber Celica behind her, and hurried toward her prey, even as her teammates screamed for her to wait. Her vision was narrowed to a tunnel, and at its end was the target of their hunt. Nothing stood between her and her quarry, but then the stones beneath her boots began to quake and rise. The stalker had been perfectly concealed, and his thick bone armor blending perfectly with the borders around it, and heaped earth covered its limbs and glowing tail. Yang's charge halted as she suddenly struggled to keep her balance, leaving her standing atop the giant scorpion's head, and right in the middle of both Princess and the Stinger. True that crossover Pokemon and Digimon probably go together like bread and butter. Yes, they do. An instant before the Stinger reached her face, there was a gunshot, and Gumbo's shroud arced around Yang's waist. The ballistic changed sides ribbon, snaring her and turning her clear. Ballistic changed side. Wow. The blonde shakily nodded her thanks to her partner as she gained her feet. Now that the trap had been sprung, the bellows of Grimm split the air. Usai and Barbatux charged from the trees. Bows hauled themselves over the edge of the cliff. Nevermores and Griffons swept over the forest canopy, and Team RWBY simply found themselves encircled, even as the stalker surged forward. And above it all, still unmoving atop its stone perch, crouched the Beowulf Alpha, watching patiently as its subordinates did its bidding. RWBY's arms felt like they were filled with lead as she tore Crescent Rose through yet another Grimm. She had lost track of how many she had killed since they walked into the Alpha's trap, but there still seemed to be no end to them. Her legs were aching in ways they hadn't since she first started training as a huntress, and her ribs and shoulders were bruised from the handful of times she had been tagged by the mass of the Grimm hemming her in. In short, she felt pretty cruddy. How are they bruised? RWBY, you should train more on your aura. The rest of the team wasn't doing much better. Yang's aura was blazing, but she noticeably favoring her right side. Blake's dodges were becoming narrower and less sure. Vice's grips were still strong, but the gentle spinning was becoming erratic. Zoet bubbled in the air a little as she swept over to the horde, using supersonic on random Grimm and fending off the Nevermore's pursuing him with strikes from aura-strengthened things. The real problem was the Stalker. Its thick exoskeletal armor was too thick for any of RWBY to breach solo, and any attempt to set up something more complex was met with a rush of lesser Grimm. They surrounded the huntresses, a few at a time pushing forward, just enough to keep their foe in position for the monstrous scorpion's claws or tail, while minimizing the rate at which the girls could evade them. The level of coordination on display among the mindless beasts was uncanny. It may be her always being exhausted and almost totally spent. Yup. But does that concentration on it occasionally slip in a long fight? The aura is like breathing at this moment. So kinda yes, you can actually forget to breathe in some moments, but it's not like they are gonna disable it anytime just before the concentration is fading. It's probably just that it's being already exhausted. And still the Alpha waited. This isn't working, RWBY called. Then think of something, Wise yelled back, even as she wanted charging Beowulf and speared it through the head with Myrtneister. RWBY tried to answer, but was cut off by the need to dissolve into petals and escape a snapping pincer. Zubat was exhausted. He felt like his bruises had bruises, and his throat was sore from how often he had used Supersonic in the last few hours. But he refused to give in. His contributions to the fight had been small, but he knew they were adding up. Every game that injured or killed itself, or one of its fellows, was one less that his trainer and her friends would need to fight. Every game that broke off from the attack to go after Zubat was a little more respite for RWBY. Is Zubat gonna win this fight by supersonicking the Alpha? I mean, we know that Alpha is the trainer here. Was giving out orders. He had already tried using his most useful move in the gigantic monster that had erupted under the soil, but the scorpion ignored the punishing sound waves Zubat had tried bombarding him with. He didn't have ears, and the armor insulated it too well. Thus, the game seemed to have recognized him as the source of the mind-warping sonic attacks, as he was constantly fighting off an arrow quick Raven game that pursued him relentlessly. Individually, he could drop them easily with a single wing attack or bite. But definitely not gonna do that. There. But there were never less than 3 on his tail, and usually more. Zubat heard RWBY yell something, then yelped as she barely dodged one of the Deathstalker's claws. Zubat's blood boiled as a thought, but he didn't have a way to retaliate on the biggest monster, unless it had no ears, but his echolocation had noticed the dots in the head for 10 eyes. Something in Zubat's mind clicked into place. Half-formed concepts he had been thinking about for a while were suddenly making perfect sense. If sound won't work, then he twisted in midair, dropped the attitude as another nevermore raised its talons to where he had been a second before, and shot towards the Deathstalker. I hope this works! Zubat's path was anything but straight line. There were more nevermores that tried to intercept him. He had to dodge a hasty swipe from the Griffon as he passed it, and he ducked under a plume of aura. Fueled fire crest by Wise. In the last stretch before reaching his target, he was bracketed by Blake, who ducked under him as she charged an Ursa, even as her copy vaulted over him. Or maybe it was the other way around? Zubat felt low, only a few feet off the ground. Before him was a hulking mass of the Deathstalker, dozens of times his size and clad in near impenetrable bone white armor. Behind him were a trio of nevermores, angling for the kill. This is Rat 2, starting my attack run. The nevermores were closing in, and the Deathstalkers turned to face him, claws raised and tail flexing. Zubat focused as he closed in, the noise and chaos of the battle falling away as he gathered energy. In front of his face, he couldn't see, but he could feel the move taking shape. Confuse Ray, I hope. A glowing ball of light launched at Zubat's command and shot through an erratic course before drifting past the Deathstalker's many eyes. It slid, wobbled, and spiraled through the air, and the massive bone shell shattered a little. Zubat hurtled into the same kill zone Yang had so hastily dived into. Hoping against hope that his intuition had been right, the massive claw snapped, the massive tail snapped, and the 3 nevermores pounced. Copy, call letter! Yeah, this Zubat is definitely a flyer. It's a pilot. Zubat slipped into one side, easily passing unnoticed by the root of the Deathstalker's tail. He twisted back around to survey his work and laughed aloud in relief. The Nevermores were reduced to a smoke, snapped up by those huge claws, and the Stinger had struck down at Zubat with meteoric force that had buried itself into the armor of Monster's head. Cracks spider webbed out from the point of impact, and the Scorpion was making a screeching, jittery noise, and it struggled to put its tail out. Well, it's not the alpha, but at least it worked. Furious and disoriented, the Deathstalker snapped at whatever had attacked its head, and the claw closed over the joint of the Stinger, exoskeleton cracking under the force. The tail tore free from both the head and the claw, and the beast angrily stabbed at whatever had damaged its tail. The Stinger pierced the armor of the right-hand pincer, and the massive Grim shrieked in fury. Unnoticed by the all, the Alpha's eyes narrowed, the first movement it had made since the battle has joined. Observation. Distraction. Imprecision. Inefficiency. Unacceptable! Orders. Clarity. The Deathstalker shuddered, and despite its wound, its movements became more precise. Throwing off the last effects of Zubat's gambit, the huge game readied itself to attack again. RWBY zipped up next to Zubat, a broad grin on her face. "Great shot, Zubat! That was 1 in a million!" She called to the rest of the team, who were still spread out and fighting the horde. "Now's our chance! Right, spin left! Blake, tail, yank, break it down!" Without needing further instructions, the well-oiled machine that was Team RWBY disengaged from their foes and converged on the stricken Deathstalker, while skated past her on her glyphs at speeds more associated with her partner, as she charged Mr. with blue dust. The burst of elemental power creating massive starburst of ice that anchored the intact claw on the ground. Blake wanted onto Grim's broad back, easily evading a single untapped claw, and the blade gambled short sickle form as the tail stabbed down at her. The nimble Faunus lunged skywards, leaving a copy to take the hit, and the ribbon of the blade of her weapon snapped the damaged joint as she backflipped and landed on the Deathstalker, in front of the Deathstalker. One heave on the weapon's ribbon, and the blade sawed its way through the damaged carapace. The Stinger dropped away and began to dissolve into a smoke. Blake leapt away as the Deathstalker stuck with the sole weapon it still had, and Yan took her place, and Berserker crashed against its damaged blades, and the claw shattered into fragments. With the Deathstalker disarmed, RWBY took her chance. Her rose petals surrounded her, and collapsed atop the damaged section of the Grim's head. With a flick of her wrist, Crescent Rose's blades swiveled parallel with the shaft, forming a long-bladed spear rather than a scythe. With a cry of exertion, the sheath of the blade dipped through the broken armor and into what passed for the monster's brain. Just for good measure, she fired 3 shots in rapid succession, all further scrambling the interior of the exoskeleton. As the evaporating mass of the Deathstalker lowered her to the ground, RWBY turned to face the Alpha atop his spire of stone. Observation. Asset lost. Casualties mounting. Primary target untenable. Secondary is not located. Tertiaries persistent. Response irritation. Orders kill tertiaries. Regroup. Tertiaries? The Alpha Barrel was suddenly moving, leaping down to the ground and landing in a crouch. It rose slowly, almost unfolding as it stretched to its full height, over 10 feet of a living murder with far too many years of experience guiding its motions. Long arm lined with ropey muscle and patchwork armor reached towards her, Oh. Sorry about the yawning. Ch11's talons got inward as it twitched its fingers. RWBY blinked. Was she matching things or did the game just tell her to bring it? Didn't matter. Distantly. Oh. Peter swirled around her as she was off. Distantly, RWBY could hear the howls and roars of the grim horde launching a renewed assault, and the thunderous gunfire that meant she was on her own for a moment. She was far more focused on the ringing of her scythe's blade against the tremendous Beowulf's claws, and the way her trusted weapon bugged against her hands as it stopped dead mid-swing. RWBY immediately leapt back to avoid the follow-up, but the Grim Leader didn't bother, instead simply waiting. She charged again, her semblance granting her speed, but it didn't hurt. The monster blocked nearly a dozen swings of the heavy blade in the span of only a few seconds, with one hand. The arm didn't even lift away from the beast's sides. The roar of combat was still strong behind her, so help wasn't available yet. I guess it's time to try something new. Here goes nothing. RWBY poured aura into her semblance, far more than it took to merely activate. It was a maneuver she had been practicing off and on again for a while, and had never used it in so much as a spar. She could only pull it off for about a quarter of the time, but if she could manage it now, it might allow her to end this. Rose petals poured off her, shrouding her completely. RWBY erupted forwards even faster than normal, and rocketed at the Beowulf Alpha as a mass of red. Just before coming within its reach, the cloud of rose petals split into 3 smaller partitions, and each independently redirected itself and slipped past the impassive Grim. They rejoined and became RWBY again, pointing crescent Rose's high caliber barrel unerringly at the back of Beowulf's head. Wasn't that volume 5? When she did that? When she actually finished learning that? I think. Yes! She pressed the trigger, and the massive bullet impacted point blank range, but not against the Grim's head. The smashed bullet fell off its turret. No damage done. The Alpha had blocked the shot without even turning, intercepting the bullet with its arm, the one it hadn't used yet. In the dark of the night she hadn't noticed it before, but now it was on full display. The Alpha didn't have a right hand. Its base was a twisted, gnarled mass of bone, wrapping at the end of the arm. It had the weight and certainly have a mace, and spurs and blades glowing at random. RWBY's grin slid off her face, as her eyes widened in fear. No! No, no, no! She recognized that limb, not from personal experience. She had never seen it before in her life, but all the same, she now knew exactly what she stood in presence of, and terror gripped her soul. And then the monster whipped around with incredible speed, and grabbed Crescent Rose by the barrel, with its good hand, just below the blade. With what looked like no more than a twitch, RWBY found herself on the losing end of the game of Crack the Whip, as she slammed into the tall boulder, just enough to force the break with enough force to break her aura. Now it's completely broken. RWBY cried out in pain, but it was cut off as the heft of her weapon pressed against her throat, pinning her to the stone wall. She tried to push it away, but the Grim's strength was indomitable, and black spots danced before her vision, just like mine. Before she blacked out, the pressure eased slightly. 4? What? What for? Did I misread anything? Or... What are you counting? My yawning? The alpha leaned in, its massive head getting close to hers. The two locked eyes, RWBY barely able to breathe. Couldn't begin to comprehend why it hadn't already killed her, like it had so many huntsmen and huntresses before her. It stared down at her, impassive, inscrutable. Observation. Tertiary Prime possesses silver eyes. Secondary observation. Tertiary Prime has not used silver eyes, despite the extreme threats to self and other tertiaries. Hypothesis: Tertiary Prime does not know how to use silver eyes. Sending orders. Report encounter with silver eyes. Await further instructions. So... yeah, it definitely sounds like this alpha is not the leader. Let's just say it like that. And also it looks like it's half mechanical. It's probably one of the Grimm that was able to get away from the lab that they referenced. That when they were trying to make more terrifying Grimm. I don't know what kind of other fanfiction is that referring to, but that's what I think about this. For now. Never mind. Orders, ignore territories. Disengage immediately. Get away from my sister! Yang blazed with power as she charged up for Beowulf, flame bursting from her body, as all of her boosted strength was brought to bear on the monster threatening RWBY. Even as she charged, Zubat reached his trainer and slacked her hood in his mouth, turning her away from the monster and encouraging her to get clear. In a minor of her fight with Machoke, Yang's fist crashed against the immovable wall of the werewolf's own fist, and an instant later, her mouth fell open as she realized that was no fist. The claw of a bone withdrew and slammed into Blonde's gut hard enough to knock the wind out of her. The fire snuffed instantly as Yang wheezed, doubled over in pain as much of her remaining aura was consumed, keeping her in one piece. She staggered back, and suddenly Weiss and Blake were there. They are trained together for situations like this, and their motions looked like they had been choreographed by a professional as they moved in tandem. The blades weaved together into werewolf steel, covering each other's openings and lashing out in tandem to create inescapable swords. The werewolf moved almost in sync with the pair, looking for all the world like it had trained alongside them. It parried with its claws and blocked with its bone mace fluidly. Well, all Grimm obeys Salem. I mean, that's true. But it would mean that either Salem is here or they can still connect to her through the portals. I mean, they might have been opened by her. Who knows? But at that point, in this point where RWBY, Weiss, Blake and others are, it was still the academy. They were still in the school. That means they don't know about Salem at all. They might have heard the name the Queen, that's all. It parried with its claws and blocked with its bone mace fluidly, effortlessly matching her footwork and moving with a grace that neither the hunters spare ever had seen in the game before. Vice chose to change the game, riding burn dust and running a red glow down the length of her rapier. And just as she released the pent-up energy in a fire burst, the heavy mace arms slammed into the flat of Metanaster's blade, almost wrenching it from the pale girl's grasp and spinning her to the side. Instead of a mass of black fur and red patterned bone, Vice realized she was now aiming at the shocked Faunus girl at the shoulder. The blast erupted between them, sending them both tumbling and coughing up smoke. They rose to their feet slowly, entire night's verse of aches and exhaustion making itself known all at once. RWBY, Yang, and Zubat joined Vice and Blake, and together the five struggled to ready themselves for the next assault. One they would face together. It wasn't to be. The alpha bear wolf, rather than resume the attack, scared the spire it had watched the battle from, retaining its perch at the top. As the girls braced for whatever would come next, the beast spread its arms wide, and the sun picked them off the distant mountains, the sudden light blinding them. As the girls flinched and hissed at the pain, they were flight backwards, plummeting off the cliff. Team RWBY stood uncomprehending for long seconds before tremendous black sheep crested the cliff and flew away, over the valley below. On the giant Nevermore's back, they could see the crouched form of the Alpha, riding its minion off to parts unknown. They didn't bother to look back at the huntresses. Behind them, the remaining grain vanished back into the deep shadows of the trees, abandoning the fight. Panting, bruised, and bone-weary, they stood at the edge of the cliff and watched their foe escape. There was a long moment of silence until the light of dawn, as they struggled to find words that could express the thoughts whirling through their heads. Unsurprisingly, it was RWBY who managed it first. Yang! I know it, RWBY. Yang, that was... I know, RWBY. Yang, we just fought Randall! I know, RWBY. Vice and Blake shared a confused look. It's from Fairy Tail, isn't it? I know that name. I heard that name. Vice and Blake shared a confused look and stared at the nearly hyperventilating sisters. Who is Grandeur? Vice demanded. RWBY and Yang stared at her like she had gone out of her head, before Yang shook her head and leaned back against the rook. Right, not from where. It's a long story. Maybe it should wait until we get back to town. And which way is that? Blake asked. Her teammates paused as they surveyed the surroundings. The valley below wasn't the same one as Golden Valley rested in. And after spending all night chasing the dream on a near random pass through the mountains, none of them knew how to retrace their steps. Oh, god damn it! None of them? I object. Zubat probably knows how to get back. I mean, it can just fly up and see where the other town is. But wow, this was a long chapter. We're obviously gonna ruin this 500 with one more like. I'm the 501st like. And I'm really sorry about the lots of yawning. I'm really tired. This is why we are not gonna continue today. Hopefully tomorrow I will have more energy. At some points I even struggled to keep my eyes open. But this was an amazing fight. It was an amazing episode. And it set up the next one, which is Grendel. Zod is blind and sees to echolocate. Oh, that is true. That is true. They can just ask the other Pokemon which way is the Golden Valley. Then, if we follow RWBY's logic, right? Okay, so sorry. What do you want? Sorry. There's a lot of people writing to me at this moment. Luckily you can't hear it, because when I'm streaming I have the streamer mode enabled, and the Discord is not doing the usual blimps and bloops. They are really annoying. But yeah, they thought Grendel, whoever that was, is definitely one kind of Grim that is very observant. I just say it like that. It really sounds like that it is basically half machine. At least from the observations and collecting orders. Who knows? But it definitely gets orders from something or someone. I don't like the implication that Ch11 might be here, but those are the implications nonetheless. We definitely need to know what causes these portals to open. And I feel like the only reason they are gonna get back to the town is because Gary and others are gonna find them. I mean, we know that Arcanine can use a slowed order, so order slur, so obviously they can find them and they can get them back to the same city. Or if not, they can just ask their way around the other Pokemon, which would help. But yeah, it seems they couldn't actually kill all the Grim. There's still a lot going around. Are they gonna attack next time as well? Who knows? It definitely seems like that this Grim leader, Alpha leader, is not doing too much of thinking on attacking. It's still just waiting for its orders. And it seemed to find out that RWBY cannot use or doesn't know how to use her silver eyes. Well, I'm definitely gonna have a good night. But first I'm gonna eat something because I'm hungry as well. But obviously I'm gonna go to sleep. It's obviously not gonna be night time because it's morning, but that's the way of the night shift, I guess. And we don't need this game music right now. Let's do some common music to end this up. And we are gonna continue tomorrow at the same time, hopefully with a lot more energy. There was a lot of trouble in my workplace. Not trouble, but lot of problems that we had to fix. So hopefully it's not gonna come up next time as well. There's an old legend and movie about the warrior Beowulf. And Grendel is his son. Oh! Oh. Okay. I was like, yeah, I definitely knew, heard the name Grendel. I don't know if it's from, if I heard it in RWBY. But I have a feeling that it was mentioned when Ospin asked them, what is your favorite fairy tale? As one of the titles. I'm not sure. And we know that in RWBY, most of the fairy tales are not just fairy tales. Not just legends. Most of them are real. I mean, and this obviously is. It is Grendel. They know that this is Grendel. So it's an alpha wolf with a club. A club bone. On the left or right leg? Instead of actual leg structure. And it is unwaveringly much more sentient than the others. It can actually think and follow orders and give orders. So it's a general. It's a General Grimm. But yeah, I think that's it for today. I'm sorry for not being perfectly fit for this. I definitely was struggling with reading. Mostly because I didn't see half of the letters. I was mostly just like, oh, I see this part of the word. I think the last part is this. But that was unconscious. So if I misread anything, that's my fault. But yes, I'm leaving. See you tomorrow. Thank you for being here.